we're going to do the smarter way to reach business decision makers, Meta versus LinkedIn. Discover why Meta is now the most economical and effective platform for B2B marketing. And you guys are going to be joined today by Kenny Norton. He is the Director of Advertising here at Emory Day. So welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for joining, and I look forward to a good discussion at the end of the presentation.
Yep. All right.
And are we ready?
Yep, let's go.
All right. So thank you again for joining today. We're going to be looking at Meta versus LinkedIn, and really how you would use Meta to target business decision makers and why it may offer some surprising advantages that we don't always think of, and why LinkedIn may not be the best choice. But before we get into that, I will let Anne-Marie talk a little bit about, and who is our marketing director at Emory Day, a little bit about who Emory Day is, and just to give you an idea of who we are, and to give some background about why we're presenting this information to you.
Yep, I've got it. All right, so who is Emory Day? We like to think of ourselves as the best of professionals, technology, and AI, and we've been growing businesses for over 20 years. We are what's known as a full stack or a full service marketing agency. We do it all. We have just over 50 US team members across 31 different states, and we have been doing this remotely for over 20 years, so before it was popular, so that we are really good at it. We also have our own lead generation platform for which we've served thousands of clients with one mission, and that's to grow your business. We do it cost effectively. We have an eye on your ROI, and we're always watching your marketing to generate traffic that converts into customers. We help businesses thrive, whether you're aiming to increase your revenue or preparing to sell your business. Let that person in. Okay. You can go to the next slide. Yep.
All right.
We have an AI-powered dashboard, and it helps you build scalable marketing, provide visibility, and close more business. And something I really like to point out to people is that companies that use a CRM, they actually see an average sales increase of 29%. That is a huge statistic. So our dashboard is that CRM that we built from the ground up just for marketing and visibility. So we include that with all of our plans.
All right. Well, thank you, Anne-Marie, for giving people a little bit of a background on who Emory Day is.
Yep.
And so, thank you. So now we'll get to talking about the presentation, which is why Meta may be better than LinkedIn for you with your marketing when you're trying to find business decision makers. And that is the challenge all of us have when we're trying to reach these decision makers, is how do we allocate our budget smartly? And a lot of times the trap is over investing in LinkedIn, and that it's not always the most optimal choice. And we underutilize Meta a lot of times when we miss the scale that we can have in Meta. And so that's what we want to look at today, is how we can increase our B2B lead sources through Meta. And we know that social is becoming the dominant choice for B2B marketers. 75% of all B2B marketers say that social advertising is their most used channel. It is becoming bigger than Google. At Emory Day, we're putting more people on social than Google, which 5 years ago, you never would have thought that would be the case. But that is the case. And then we mostly would assume that LinkedIn is the best place to go to reach these business decision makers, but it's not always the case anymore. In fact, in our experience, we found that LinkedIn is not the most optimal choice. In fact, we find it's most expensive, and Meta's reach and targeting is going to be a lot better for you. And that's kind of what I want to present to you today. But before we get into that, I'm going to look at a little bit of the advantages of Meta, a little bit of the disadvantages of LinkedIn, and then we'll dive deeper into the actual aspects of how we use Meta to target business decision makers. And we all know that everybody is on Facebook. We're sharing photos of kids, grandkids, our trip pictures, memes that we find funny. Social contact today occurs as much on social media as it did on the phone in the past, if not more. And because of this, the reach is massive. Meta's interest targeting for B2B marketers allows you to test widely, build awareness, and retarget to these people. With their cost efficiency, which we'll discuss in detail later on, you can use Meta early in the funnel, attract those decision makers. The key is not to always expect them to convert immediately. Many will, but a good strategy will involve multiple ads where you can reach your audience in each step of the funnel. And Meta's ability for immediate lead generation is growing, and we've seen much success with VSLs, which I'll also talk about a little bit later. And it could also be its own webinar as well in the future, why VSLs are a good lead generation tool. But the key to the strategy is a robust interest-based targeting that is built on personas. And that is the key that we found. And we'll talk about that in depth as well. And I got a little ahead of myself in my talking, and I do apologize. Some of the risk and challenges of Meta, there is some challenges to it. I don't want to sugarcoat everything. And low cost can be a double-edged sword, and that is the real risk with Meta. We use the term, sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find your prince. But if you don't have a plan for qualification and nurturing these leads, it can become a volume trap. You get a lot of leads, but those leads can be very mixed quality. So you need to have a good plan and how to sort through your leads and make sure that you are focusing on the ones that are good for you and not spending a lot of time on the ones that are bad for you. And Meta is also a multi-touch journey. You need a robust tracking. We use UTMs, we use CRM. And with this multi-touch journey, you can understand your impact a little bit more. Not everybody converts immediately. Facebook does build a funnel, which I'll talk about a little bit more. But the downside to that funnel that Meta creates for you, it's kind of a black box. You can't optimize it the way you can with Google. Google, there's a lot of levers you can pull to do things. Facebook, there's very few. And so a lot of Facebook involves making sure that you are contacting your leads, nurturing your leads. And we'll discuss how we do that and how the best ways to do that for you are throughout the presentation. The other option, or not the other option, the other downside to this is you can't scale too quickly and you can't show your ad too frequently. And those are the traps of Meta and Facebook, Instagram. But what you don't want to do is waste your spend, and we'll talk more about that as well. The risk and challenges of LinkedIn. It is high cost per lead and a high cost per click. LinkedIn knows that they've got you trapped in there. They know that you have a very engaged audience at times. They know that it's the audience you want, and they're going to charge a premium for it. What Meta on LinkedIn doesn't tell you is how often these people actually log into LinkedIn. They may be there, they may be easy to target, but they don't log in as often as they do on Facebook. The other issue is that we're talking about is platform saturation and ad fatigue. It can happen on LinkedIn just as easy as it can on Facebook, even with people logging in less, especially if you're running the various ad types, which you have to do on LinkedIn. That is the issue with LinkedIn. It takes a large budget, which we'll talk about as well. But LinkedIn will tell you it takes 14 touch points to get a conversion in LinkedIn. The risk of that ad fatigue is very high. And that 14 touch points involves things such as organic post, ad post, maybe an in-mail ad as well. So people can probably get tired of hearing from you before they get to those 14 touch points. Where on Facebook, it's a much smaller window, and that risk of fatigue is less. And there is also very scaling limitations in LinkedIn. Because you are targeting job titles, it's hard to reach a broader audience. It's also hard to reach a broader audience because people, as I mentioned, are logging in much less frequently in LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has a $10 a day budget minimum, but that is just a minimum. As I mentioned, LinkedIn will even tell you, if you talk to them and get somebody who's good on LinkedIn, you're going to spend about $5,000 to $6,000 just to scratch the surface and start getting some traction on LinkedIn. Whereas with Facebook, as we'll discuss in just a moment, your threshold is much lower. And to sum all this up, your higher quality comes at a higher cost per click, higher cost per lead, And if you do not have that budget allocation, it can be risky if it's not optimized well. And even then, it's not guaranteed with a lower budget that you will get the leads you want. And so we can look at this in a kind of an easy look at table comparison. The cost per click on Meta, you're looking at about 50 cents to $3. Depends on your industry, your interest targeting, how many people are actually competing for that audience you're looking at. Sometimes it can be a little bit more, but that is kind of the average range. Whereas on LinkedIn, you're looking at $5 to $15 on average. Again, who you're targeting, the competition for that targeting, it could be a little bit less, it can be a little bit more. Your cost per lead, you're looking at $30 to $200 on Facebook. A lot of them will fall into the lower side. Again, it depends on competition, your interest targeting, how narrow it is. But on LinkedIn, you're looking at $100 to $400 typically on LinkedIn, and that is if you actually get traction. Your cost per thousand, which is kind of a look at how much it costs to show 1,000 impressions, and that is worked into your cost per click. It's about $8 to $15 on Meta. It's about $70 on LinkedIn. So with that, your question is, why should I use Facebook for B2B ads? People are looking at it at home. People are looking at personal items. They're not really thinking about work. And that is the interesting question, because that's the question I myself was skeptical of when we started moving more towards the first option. And that is, and Anne-Marie has a great way to say it, you don't take your hat off when you're on Facebook. You're still that business decision maker on Facebook. Even if you're not in that moment thinking about business, you're still that business owner. You're still that director. You're still that manager. And that is how we get them. And that is where we'll talk about today. It's those passive moments where with the right message, you can get good leads at a very affordable cost. And that's kind of where we're looking at today. It is a massive reach. Everybody just about is on Facebook. With these interest targeting that I'm talking about, you can get interest, you can get behaviors, you can get demographics. Meta is really increasing the B2B options you have every day, and it's getting stronger and stronger. It is very cost efficient compared to other channels. Even Google Ads is not as cost efficient as Meta. And it is great for demand generation, not just lead capture. You can build that brand awareness at the same time as getting leads and really, really build out your funnel at a very good cost. And the one good thing about Facebook is that you have some strong creative formats for explaining complex B2B offers. You can have video. This video can work with, you can do product demonstrations. You can do what we like to do is video sales letters or VSLs. You can have testimonials in your videos. You can do carousels to show a journey. You can do standard image ads. There's a variety of ways you can tell your story. And B2B audiences are on Facebook just as much as the business to consumer audiences on Facebook. Business, they still use business decision makers still use Facebook as consumers, even when they're doing the personal stuff. And that's the thing that we often forget about when you think, oh, we need to go to LinkedIn, they're engaged. They're still engaged on Facebook. They may not be discussing their business publicly on Facebook, but they're still consuming content on Facebook. They all have personal profiles. They're all looking at them every day, sometimes during work hours, a lot of times after work hours. And that gives you an opportunity to introduce your brand before they start actively researching for solutions. You're getting them in that passive time. And in that passive time, you can plant the seed. And you can also reach them after work only hours, whereas LinkedIn tends to be something we look at just during business hours, unless you're looking for a job, and then you're not really looking to really make business decisions because you're looking for a job on LinkedIn. That will tend to happen after hours. But if you're making business networking opportunities, you are doing that during business hours. Whereas with Facebook, and you're doom scrolling at 9 o'clock at night, you have that chance to reach in with that message that will hook them and get them to fill out a form or make an appointment. And let's talk about the advanced targeting capabilities that you do have on Facebook. And it does offer some deep targeting layers for you. Everybody knows about interest targeting. That is where Facebook really shines with business to consumer. But those same interest targeting work really well for business decision makers, especially when you have a strong persona. And with that persona, you can know the interest that that particular buyer will have. You can target those using Facebook. And what we like to do is find out what do they like from a business perspective, not necessarily from a personal perspective. And so you can look at those industry topics, software tools that they might like, and job related interests. You can go as narrow as just saying these are people who like manufacturing, or you can go as detailed as people who like a certain company's page. Facebook doesn't always let you target that, but you can target certain interests of that page. You can target certain Facebook groups at times. It just depends on which one it is. But if, say, it's not necessarily a page, but it's a person that is an industry thought leader, we can target people who like that thought leader as well. So it does provide a lot of advanced targeting once you have those personas. Without those personas, you won't know that this particular buyer likes that thought leader, or this particular buyer is interested in these type of pages or topics. And we'll talk a little bit as well about building your personas. Behavior targeting, that's very similar to interest. If you know that they're frequent travelers or they're page admins to certain types of pages, we can target those as well. You can also target demographics like age, location. Facebook does have some job title related as well. That is not as robust because we don't always put a resume onto Facebook the same way we do with LinkedIn. But another advanced option we can do on Facebook is lookalike audience. If you have a list of prospects or a list of current customers, we can upload that information into Facebook and say, create an audience that looks like this. You can do 1%, 2%, 10%, or 20% larger than what you have. You can tell them the size of the audience. It goes out and builds that audience for you, and it finds people who look like those people when it matches them to their Facebook profiles. And you can also have options to layer all these options in as you build your persona. And one way to do that is to build your lookalike audience and then filter it by some interest targeting. What I would not do is do a contact list and then filter that, because Facebook always goes to the contact list first. And so if you're going to filter those, we would filter with a lookalike and then filter it down. That way you have a wider audience and you're not narrowing yourself. But once you get the people engaging with your Facebook ads, as I mentioned earlier, Facebook builds a funnel. It gives one ad to people at one point in time and another ad at another point in time if you have multiple ads. Facebook really wants to build that awareness, get them to engage, and then get them again when they're ready to I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, to make sure that they are following your CTA and taking up on your offer and your message. And one of the ways you can do this is to retarget. And that is one of Facebook's biggest strengths. Once someone hits our site or your site, they watch a video or they engage with content, you can follow them. That gives them that cookie. You can send them a specific remarketing message, a specific remarketing ad that helps them further go through that funnel. You can also use your lead list for this retargeting as well, because if you are capturing certain information, you can put that into retargeting. And this allows you to nurture them over multiple touch points instead of relying on just a single click, which is what you would do with Google. With Google Ads, you're relying on that single click. You can remarket on Google, but you're still relying on them to search again or to see a display ad. Whereas with this, you can specifically hit these people with a specific message and further that journey. And this is really great for building brand awareness and trust building that trust with people so that when they are ready, they choose you. Facebook is also very cost effective compared to other channels. Compared to LinkedIn, Facebook often provides far lower CPMs and cost per clicks, as we saw on the chart. And that means you can stretch your budget much further for awareness and content promotion, as well as lead generation. It's also gives you enough room to test creatives, test messaging, and seeing what offers actually resonate with people. And those could be things like content promotion, events and webinar registrations like you entered today. And it's a good testing ground for creative messaging and also knowing what will work before you scale. You can see what ads are really resonating with people. You can put those ads in a new campaign and really scale your budget up. And if you have frequency goals, like you're trying to build that brand awareness, you can do so at a much easier pace with less cost when you have smaller budgets. And it also offers, as we mentioned, these rich creative options. We mentioned that earlier. Let's take a little bit of a deep dive into the multiple ad formats that you can use to tell your story. And the first one is what you're all familiar with, is the image and video ads. The image ads, they're just the static images. We all see them. There's a example in the image next to my bullet points of just a single image ad. But there's also the video ads, and the video ads provide you with a lot of room and a lot of variety. And as I mentioned earlier, it could be a product demonstration, it could be a variety of testimonials, it could be a video sales letter. There's a lot of opportunities for you to tell your story in these image and video ads, and a lot of room for expansion. And what we found is sometimes with your video ads, it doesn't have to be a new video. It can be a shorter edited video. It can be a video that's a little bit sped up. Be a video that is just a slightly different script than the first one. These all work very well to kind of build that funnel, to build that interest, and tell your story. The other option that it provides is carousel ads. And carousel ads are really good when you are providing something that's linear or something with multiple products, because you can show each product, you can show a progression. One of them I like to use is a theme park. It showed the progression, the start of their theme park visit, a resort hotel. It showed them in the theme parks, it showed the happy family at the end of the day. It told a very succinct story. And carousel options really provide you that type of opportunity. And that was more of a business to consumer example. I know, not a business to business, but it was a very strong way to tell a story. You can also use collection ads for product catalogs. These are kind of similar to shopping ads on Google. It's a way to get products out to buy, especially say you're a manufacturer, you do have products to sell. You can mix in collection ads with video ads and image ads to really get your product out in front of people. And then Facebook also offers what we call lead ads. And these allow people to stay on Facebook. They don't have to go to a web page and fill out a form. They can fill out a form directly on Facebook, and it just reduces that friction a little bit more. And you still capture all their information. In fact, a lot of it is pre-filled out from Facebook, so they don't really have to do anything but click the submit button if you want a very basic information like name, phone number, and email. And all these options do help you tell a complex story, and it gives a lot of visual ways to tell your story. And that kind of leads us into that support funnel that we were talking about with your B2B strategy, is building your strategy from top to bottom and making sure that all of your messaging is succinct. And what we do is look at top of the funnel, and Facebook does this naturally with their algorithm. And so at the top of the funnel, you want to make sure you're promoting your content and your brand messaging to a cold audience. These are people who are seeing you for the first time. Video is very good for that. The video sales letters are very good for that. In fact, the video sales letters are very good for moving them from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel in the same ad without having to give them something different. But sometimes it takes 2 or 3 video sales letters. And that's where you can get into whether it's just a slightly different message or a whole different message. And then in the middle of the funnel, this is kind of where you want to retarget to them. You want to retarget to the website visitors, people who clicked your ads but didn't fill out a form. And you can engage them with other type of ads, send them to a case study, bring people to a webinar that you're presenting. Keep them engaged, keep them in front of you. And then finally, the bottom of the funnel is where they're actually going to engage with you, take your offer, fill out a form, or give you a call. And you can use this through through retargeting your high intent users. And you can send them to a pricing page or a demo page. We like to send people to a Calendly where they can actually make an appointment to talk to someone. Those are all the ways that you can reach that ready to, I call it a ready to buy audience or a ready to engage audience. And those are people who you really want to target. And Facebook is still the best choice of getting these people over LinkedIn in a lot of ways. And one of the ways you do that is with your strong CTAs, like book a demo or talk to sales. And how we get these people on Facebook, as we mentioned earlier, is capturing that passive audience when they're not expecting it. And when they're in their non-work moments, they're scrolling during a break, they're scrolling at home. Even during these non-work moments, as we mentioned earlier, you're still that business executive, you're still that decision maker. And we don't stop being buyers after 5 p.m. We're still buyers after 5 p.m. And that's where you really want to make sure that you're capturing them when they're scrolling on Facebook. And it's the best way to do this. We see most engagement in our ads on the evening and weekends. And when I say our ads, I mean Emery own advertising. We get a lot of traction on evening and weekends. We get a good bit during business hours, but there's a lot of people and business decision makers that are scrolling during the evening and weekends because that's their downtime. You also see it mobile downtime. And what I mean by that is it could be during the workday, but they're traveling on mass transit, they're on the subway, they're on a bus. That's a good time to reach them as well. And then subtle repeated exposure builds familiarity and trust. And that's where that frequency comes in. You want them to see your video a few times. One of the things we hear is, we just saw your video all the time. Every time we're on there, we see your video. So we just wanted to talk to you. It built that trust, it built that awareness, and it made people interested in what we had to say or what our clients had to say. And that's kind of the example with this last bullet. You stay top of mind when they're back in work mode and they're not in downtime mode. And so when do they work best, and how do you make them work best? And that is building a clear, ideal customer persona. And you can do this with ChatGPT. There are a lot of tools, not offering a tool in this webinar, but there are some tools you can use to build your personas, but that is the key. If you don't have a good buyer persona, you're kind of just out there and you have wide interest targeting. So building that ideal persona is the key to making Facebook work for business to business. And then ChatGPT can give you a good buyer persona with just a simple prompt. Let's say create an advertising persona for this type of person. It will create one for you. It will tell you their interest. It will tell you key targeting messages. But that buyer persona is the thing that you need. Without that, everything else we're talking about doesn't work very well. You also need compelling content and offers. Video sales letters, I keep pushing those, but that is where you can get those good offers. You can get that good information that's very compelling. People see you, they hear you, they build that trust immediately. And then you also need proper tracking. You use your Facebook pixel so you can capture that remarketing audience. And you have a very well-defined conversion event, whether it's they fill out a form, they give you a phone call. And then you need a strong follow-up system. If you're not nurturing those leads, if you're not following up with them, then this could be just as useless as just spending a lot of money on LinkedIn and not getting anything. And here's some of the examples that we've done with our clients. We have a B2B service company, and with Google, we had a $286 cost per lead. It was very high. It wasn't bringing in, it was bringing in leads, but it was not very effective for this client. And then with LinkedIn, we spent a lot of money with no leads at all. But we put a VSL on Facebook with a strong buyer persona. We've had 191 leads in the last 30 days at $55 each. Much more effective than Google and LinkedIn for this particular, and this is a B2B service company. For a manufacturing company who had not advertised at all, we put them with a video ad on Facebook. They have a cost per lead of $13 at a 7% conversion rate, and they had 61 leads. We had a dairy company who was very adamant that we would not be able to reach farmers. He didn't think farmers were on Facebook. He didn't think that they would really engage. But in the first month, we had 18 leads at $49 each. And we also had a business coach who really did not find any traction on Google or LinkedIn. But with the VSLs, he had 64 leads at $15 each. And so all these are examples of where LinkedIn failed us. LinkedIn was expensive, but Facebook did the job. And that is because everybody's on Facebook. Everybody is ready to engage with ads on Facebook, even though they ignore a lot of them. But we found with the strong buyer personas and the right message, we were able to get those good engagements that we couldn't find on other platforms. And it's not that we did a bad job on those other platforms. It was just that Facebook became the best way to reach those business decision makers. And so the key takeaways that I have for this is Meta is no longer just for business to consumer. It is a very cost-effective business to business tool, and you can reach top of funnel as well as bottom funnel, build that whole funnel for you at a very cost-effective way. It's also good at building that demand generation, and it's excellent for reaching decision makers at scale, nurturing and retargeting your prospects, and testing messaging cost effectively. And you may be thinking, well, how can I do this myself? Here is a ChatGPT prompt that we can give you. And it starts with create a guide and a checklist for B2B companies building strong Meta, Facebook, Instagram advertising campaign as part of their marketing plans. And then you'll ask it to include audience strategy, offers and funnel design, recommended campaign structure, measurement and optimization, and a clear step-by-step checklist for building a campaign, and common pitfalls to avoid, plus quick wins for the first 30 to 60 days. And then format with headings, bullets, and practical guidelines. And this is a good prompt that you can use, and we will send this out to you after the call, that you can use if you wish to do this on your own. But we also would like to invite you as well, instead of doing it on your own, let Emery help you. We're very good at this Facebook generation. Even if you don't want to immediately jump on board with us, we're very happy to have that discussion with you and help push you on the right decision path to what is best for you.